Math 76, Lesson 35, Writing Decimal Numbers as Fractions, Part 1, and Reading and Writing Decimal Numbers. So, let's get right into it. So, writing decimal numbers as fractions is very, very simple, very, very similar to writing percents as fractions. So, let's start off with a simple decimal number. Let's start off with 3/10, right? And we should be properly reading this as 3/10, not 0.3. Every now and again, like I've said, I will slip up and I'll read a decimal number as 0.3. Just remember that I'm wrong. I make mistakes sometimes. I should be saying 3/10. And the reason why is because that proper pronunciation or that proper reading of the decimal number helps us convert it to a fraction very, very quickly. So when you're converting a decimal number to a fraction, you simply identify what place value the very last number in the decimal is in. Here, my last number is 3. It's in the place value of tenths. And that place value tells me how I'm going to write this as a fraction. All I have to do is I take this entire decimal number, which is just 3, and I put it over the denominator of 10, because that is the place value. So this would be rewritten as 3/10. Then I would ask, can I reduce? Do I need to reduce? Looking at this, I do not need to reduce. So my final answer is 3/10. Now, let's say we've got something like this. We've got we've got 3/100ths, right? If we were to read it incorrectly, it'd be 0.03. This is 3/100ths. So again, we find out what place value our last number is, the last number being 3. It's in the place value of hundredths, which means this is going to be 3 over 100, which also cannot be reduced. Are you guys seeing a trend here? Okay, let's see if we can throw a trick question in here. Now let's say we've got 0.325. Okay, this is read as 325 thousandths. So the 5 is in the place value of thousandths, which means I'm going to take this entire number, 325, I'm going to put it over the number 1,000. So 325 over 1,000. Now I have to ask, can I reduce this? Unfortunately, I can, which means I'm going to have to do quite a bit of division. So I can't just stop at 325. I can see that both of these are divisible by 5. So I could divide by 5, or I could use a bigger number. My favorite big number to use when I see a number like 25 is quarters, right? So if I remember that there are 4 quarters in $1, and 300 is like $3, so that's 4 plus 4 plus 4. That gives me 12 quarters in the number 300, and then one more gives me 325. So I could divide by 25, and I will see that I have 13, right? Or I can do that using the traditional algorithm. I'll take 325 divided by 25, right? 25 goes in once, multiply, subtract, regroup. I have 7, and then I bring down the 5. 25 goes into 75 3 times. I get 75, which zeroes out and proves that it is 13. So now that I've checked my answer, I'll go ahead and I'll divide 1,000 by 25. Now the way I do this is I remember a roll of quarters, or $10 is also like 1,000 pennies, and a quarter is like 25 pennies. So I go, how many quarters are in a roll of quarters? Well, it's actually 40. So if you remember, I said that there's 4 quarters in $1. So if there's $10 in a roll of quarters, that means there's 40 quarters, right? So I'm going to go ahead and write 40, and then we'll do the math to prove it. All right, 25 cannot go into 10, so I go into 100. 25 goes into 100 4 times. 4 times 25 is 100. I get 0. I bring down the 0. 25 goes into 0 0 times. 0 times 25 is 0, and works out perfectly. So 13 over 40. Can 13 over 40 be reduced? Nope. No, it can't. 13 is a prime number. 13 can't go into 40 any certain number of times. So my final answer is 13/40ths. Okay. So that's writing decimal numbers as fractions. All you have to do, find the place value of the last digit, take everything and put it over that place value. Then reduce if possible. Okay. Now let's talk about reading and writing decimal numbers. This is in words. So let's say we have the following decimal number. We have this. And like I was just saying, the proper way to read this is as 23 hundredths. How do I know how to read it? The exact same method that I used here is how I know. I look at the last digit, the 3. I see the 3 is in the hundredths place. So then I will read the number as usual, the number 23, and then I will say hundredths. All right, so 23 hundredths. So this, to be written in words, I would just simply write 23. Wait, is 23 a hyphenated number? I think it is. Yeah, I'll go ahead and hyphenate it. 23, and then I put the word hundredths. Right, and that is that decimal number written with words. Okay. Now let's say we've got this. What if we've got 0.005? Right. That's read as 5 thousandths again because I look at the last digit. 5 is in the thousandths place, so 5 thousandths, and then I would just write the number 5, and then the place value thousandths. Not forgetting my THS. Now, what if it is a number that has whole values as well? Well, that's where this decimal point comes into play. And the decimal point is very, very important because the decimal point is the only time when reading or writing a number you will ever say the word and, right? Or if you have a fraction. So decimal points and fractions are the only times you'll ever say and. So let's say I have, let me find a tough one. Let's do this. Okay, so here I have the number 32, then I have a decimal point, then I have 013. So the way I would read this, I'm going to go ahead and circle this decimal point. I'm going to put, this is and, make it capitalized, and. All right, so the decimal point is always the word and. So this will be read as 32 and, play at last place values, 32 and 13 thousandths, right? So 32 and whatever number I see, thousandths. And then the way I'll write that is I will just simply write 32 and, I'm going to keep that in red just so we know. And then I write my number after the decimal point, 13. And then place value of thousandths. All right, let's go ahead and we'll do that. We'll put some more marks on here. 32 and 13 thousandths. All right, so you see here the red and the blue are the only things that we're actually adding to this number because, 32, that's how we'd normally write it. 13 is how we'd normally write it. The things we're adding is the red letter and the place value at the very end. I'll go ahead and do one more example just to make sure. Let's come up with the hardest one I can think of. Let's do, I know. We'll put big number in here. Let's go with 2,000. Whoops, no hints. Yeah, we'll make that a 6. There we go. So, this number is read as 2,452 and 64. What's the place value? Hundredths. All right. So when I go to write this, I'm going to write 2,000, comma. Oh, also, commas. They still go where they are. Let's go ahead and we'll highlight that. So if you have a number with commas, just make sure you put the comma right after the word. So 2,000, comma, 2,000, comma, right? 400, $52, and 64, place value, thousandths. Oh no, I ran out of room. We'll just write it down here. Thousandths. And there we go. That's how we turn decimal numbers into words. It's really precise. It's logical. It makes perfect sense. The decimal point will always be and. The place value will always be at the end. Other than that, you just put your two numbers in between. And then if you have a number with a comma, you just put that comma exactly where it shows up in the digit. So pretty simple. If you guys have any questions, let me know on the school's website, and I will see you in class.